This is Joliba Life CCDJI Radio 8.59 News Podcast, and here is a breaking news we're tracking at this time from Washington, D.C. I am Ryan Jack. The United States government has threatened possible military action in Nigeria over what it described as continued attacks on Christian communities in the country. U.S. President Donald Trump, in a statement on Saturday, said he had instructed the U.S. Department of War to prepare for possible military operations if the government of President Bola Tinubu failed to protect Christians from further killings. He also warned that Washington could suspend all forms of aid and assistance to Nigeria. If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. Trump posted on his Truth Social page. We may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities. Trump promised that any U.S. intervention would be fast, vicious, and sweet. The statement followed his earlier redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern, citing what he called an existential threat to Christianity. According to him, thousands of Christians are being killed and radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. This is not the first time the U.S. has placed Nigeria on the country of particular concern list. The designation was first issued in 2020 under Trump's earlier administration, citing systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. The Biden administration removed Nigeria from the list in 2021, arguing that there had been progress in religious tolerance and dialogue, and arguing the main sources of conflict had been disputes over land due to the impact of climate change. That decision was criticized by advocacy groups such as Open Doors and the International Christian Concern, ICC, which said violence against Christians persisted. The U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, echoing his boss's comment, quickly pledged the Pentagon, now called the Department of War, was ever ready to implement the directives of the Commander-in-Chief. The killing of innocent Christians in Nigeria and anywhere must end immediately, Hegseth said in his own statement. Either the Nigerian government protects Christians, or we will kill the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities, he said. The rhetoric drew wide attention in diplomatic circles and has been interpreted as a serious shift in tone by Washington, but some analysts see it as an attempt to apply moral and political pressure on Nigeria's leadership. U.S. Representative Riley Moore also supported Trump's position, describing it as a forewarning to the Nigerian authorities. The days of the United States looking the other way are over, Moore said. I urge the Nigerian government to act swiftly to prevent further atrocities. At the U.S. Senate, Republican lawmaker Ted Cruz, who had spearheaded the alarm on the worsening hostilities in Nigeria by jihadists, announced plans to introduce legislation targeting Nigerian officials who support or enforce Sharia and blasphemy laws. He said such laws had contributed to the persecution of Christians and others accused of blasphemy in northern Nigeria. Today's designation is a critical step in holding accountable and changing the behavior of Nigerian officials who have facilitated and created an environment conducive to these outrages, Cruz stated. Nigeria's religious and security challenges have deepened in recent years. While violence affects both Muslim and Christian communities, the U.S. government and several advocacy groups say the scale of attacks on Christian populations has reached alarming proportions. Credible sources have put the number of massacred Christians mostly in northern and north-central Nigeria since 2009 to between 50,000 and 100,000, with about 7,000 in this year alone. Others say these numbers could be conservative estimates. Incidents include armed raids on villages, church burnings, kidnappings of priests, and mob killings over alleged blasphemy. There have been reports of decapitation and even burning of people alive.
This is one of the lady that was kidnapped in the bush, in the hospital, sorry. And they took her to the bush. They do what they can do with her. they released her. In the night, she escaped. And by God's grace, they just jammed with the other girl coming back to the hospital. That's where the only hope of caring is all about. She went there. I couldn't know their face when I revisited them. I prayed with them. I left. I didn't know the bill, but I said, whatever they have, we are going to be together. The narration of the other lady is just like this one. They took them together. And today, I don't want to take your time. Pray for us Christians in Nigeria. We are under persecution. And we need those that will stand with us. George, Saul, thank you for mobilizing American Christians to stand by us.
Human rights organizations such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have repeatedly condemned these attacks, trying to call global attention to the scale of human suffering. They have also criticized state authorities for slow investigations and weak prosecutions, saying the lack of justice has encouraged impunity. One of the most widely reported cases was the killing of Miss Deborah Samuel, a university student in Sokoto in May 2022, after she was accused of making a blasphemous statement about Prophet Muhammad in a class chat group. The mob beating and burning of the 22-year-old student drew outrage both locally and internationally. Similar incidents followed, including the murder of a butcher in Bauchi in 2024, and another blasphemer-related killing in Kano in 2025. In each case, videos circulated widely on social media, reigniting debates about religious intolerance, mob justice, and the limits of Sharia enforcement. Security agencies insist they are doing their best to contain violence, noting that terrorism, banditry, and communal conflicts have complex social and economic roots. Trump's diplomatic offensive comes just days after there was reshuffle in Nigeria's top military brass. Outspoken former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, was suddenly ousted and replaced. General Musa had fingered possible foreign interference in the ongoing, almost intractable insurgency in Nigeria.
I just can't understand why anybody will wake up and say that we're killing people when we're actually not doing the same. And guess what? Where the Giwa barracks you were talking about, we have all the humanitarian agencies working there. You have the UN working, local and international organizations are working. Are we saying they are complicit? There is nothing we're doing in the back. So if they don't say it, which means Amnesty International is equal, and Amnesty is equally there, so which means they're equally accusing all these other organizations of being complicit.
So just to be clear, you would be prepared to go to the ICJ in The Hague and answer these accusations?
We're not scared of anything because we don't have anything of such.
We've seen Boko Haram regroup and regroup and regroup. What is your answer to that? That you have in some way fed the insurgents?
The problem is that I think we've talked to the international community. Let's find out the funding. When they started surrendering, by the time we left, so as we speak, we have over 120,000 that have surrendered. Most of them, when you find them, they are coming with hard currencies. How did they get them? How are they funded? How did they get the training? How did they get the equipment?
What is your suspicion?
Well, maybe an international conspiracy, you don't know. Who knows? How are they be able to sustain themselves for 15 years? That is one question I think everybody should ask himself. For Nigeria to be able to hold them, and you go to Nigeria, everything seems to be working well.
You must have an idea. I mean, let's not talk about international conspiracy theories. Let's give some hard facts.
Well, I just leave it at that. I'm sure they know, and I'm sure everybody knows that these are the challenges we're facing, that needs to be addressed. So the UN need to come in to ensure that, because we need to trace the funding. How are they sustaining themselves for 15 years?
What does the UN coming in mean? What does that look like?
Track the funding. It's international flow. We don't have control over that.
Whose interest is it to see Nigeria destabilized?
Well, I don't know. You don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
One commentator remarked, "There are criminals and extremists exploiting religious sentiments, yes, but there are also socio-economic factors, poverty, weak policing, and competition for resources. The government's focus is on addressing the root causes rather than turning this into a sectarian conflict." The Nigerian Christian Association, CAN, has repeatedly urged authorities to do more to protect vulnerable communities. Its president, Archbishop Daniel Okar, said in a recent statement that Christians have suffered untold violence for too long. "We expect concrete measures, not rhetoric." Muslim leaders, meanwhile, have warned against any foreign intervention that could worsen tensions or fuel Islamophobia. Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, a northern cleric, said, "The US is misreading the situation. Nigeria's problems are political and economic, not religious. Airstrikes will not solve them." And even a former aide to late President Buhari, Bashir Ahmed, defended the right to foist Sharia law in Nigeria, telling Senator Cruz that he is free to oppose Sharia in his own country, but he has no jurisdiction to dictate the laws of Nigeria. Mr. Ahmed warned that Nigeria will defend her sovereignty and right to determine her own legal affairs. Nigeria was designed to be a secular state, coexisting with an estimated equal population of Christians and Muslims and minorities of other faiths. The adoption of Islamic Sharia law in some states of Nigeria has often hit at the constitutionality of Nigeria's secularity, leaving many Christians for decades suspicious of how far the proponents of Sharia law will go. Trump's latest rhetoric, from an unpredictable world's most powerful man, is expectedly unsettling Nigeria's officials at the highest level. For the government, it raises a difficult diplomatic challenge: how to maintain sovereignty while responding credibly to global concerns about religious rights. It has reeled out denials upon denials trying to shift the narrative of a Christian genocide in Nigeria. Portraying Nigeria's security challenges as a targeted campaign against a single religious group is inaccurate and dangerous, said Mohammed Idris, Nigeria's Minister of Information. And a spokesman of the Foreign Ministry called the allegation of a Christian genocide false and baseless. He said the Nigerian government remains committed to fighting terrorism, strengthening interfaith harmony, and protecting the lives and rights of all its people. And Special Advisor to President Tinubu, Mr. Sunday Dare, advised Senator Ted Cruz to do well to engage with the facts before amplifying falsehoods that embolden extremists and malign an entire nation. The president himself has not made a direct comment on this latest development. While Trump and his supporters describe the killings as a Christian genocide, analysts say the situation is perhaps more complicated. Some of the attacks blamed on Islamic terrorists are carried out by armed groups operating for economic gain, revenge, or territorial control. The Farmer-Header conflict in the Middle Belt, for example, has both religious and ethnic dimensions, but also stems from resource scarcity and climate change. But no one can discountenance claims from a president with access to the world's must-resource intelligence and espionage service and technology. And the specific targeting and displacement of Christian communities, many of whom now reside in internally displaced camps in their own country, cannot be disputed. However, independent analysts also caution that U.S. military involvement could inflame rather than resolve tensions. Past interventions in the Middle East and Africa have often produced unintended consequences, including civilian casualties and long-term instability. Trump's statements have renewed debate about Washington's interests in Africa. The United States has major economic and security partnerships in the region, including counter-terrorism operations in the Sahel, oil trade, and strategic rivalry with China and Russia. Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy and most populous country, plays a central role in this equation. Any sustained military action, particularly if combined with economic pressure, could broaden the Nigerian fault lines and weaken the already fragile nation. Experts at the Council on Foreign Relations say the threat should be understood more as a signal than an imminent plan. Dr. Michelle Gavin, a former U.S. ambassador to Botswana, noted that American presidents rarely act militarily without congressional oversight or international coalition support. But the rhetoric itself sends a message of frustration with Nigeria's handling of internal security. For the Nigerian government, the immediate task is diplomatic containment to prevent rhetoric from turning into policy. Senate President himself on Thursday argued thus.
So I think somebody suggested that we ought to have gone into executive session to discuss this. But I don't think we can win. No group can win any discussion on this. Because it depends on the state you are looking at. If terrorism occurs in a Christianly dominated state, most people that will die there will be Christians. If it occurs in a Muslim-dominated state, most of those who will die there will be Muslims. But if it occurs particularly in the North Central, you will notice that it will be targeted at maybe churches because that is what they're able to get. And then at the end they will say, oh, it's Muslims that kill Christians. If it happens in Kano or Borno, they will say Christians kill Muslims. So the way the whole situation is that we still need to go into executive session and get a date for our security summit, so we can have close discussion on these matters. What is happening in the United States is of concern to Nigeria. It's of concern to the Christians, it's of concern to the Muslims. Because the moment they bring sanctions to breed poverty. Poverty knows no religion. So for me, engagement will be the best. When we go into executive session, we can decide to set up a small ad hoc committee to go to the United States of America and engage our colleague parliamentarians there. And then to also educate them. Because if you see what these people are doing, most of them are outsiders. When they come and start spraying bullets from GP, what do you call it, or they throw rocket, they are not throwing rocket into the crowd, targeting a particular religion. They are killing Nigerians. I don't know who will now go and sit down and bring out maybe the dead bodies and say, this one is a Christian, this one is from this family, this must be a Muslim. So we are facing a situation whereby these terrorists are trying to terminate the lives of Nigerians. And then, of course, frustrate us from going into the farms, producing food to feed ourselves. So this discussion will be better in a closed session. And I think at the end of the day, we should actually have a small team that should visit our colleagues and also put the other side. Because some people must have gone there to give a one-sided story. And at the end, it will now look as if only Christians are being killed by terrorists in Nigeria. But I can tell you that a lot of Muslims have lost their lives in the last 5-10 years. The same way Christians have also lost their lives. So my personal opinion is that Nigerians have lost their lives as a result of insurgencies, banditry, and others. So if you look at what is happening in the Southeast, predominantly Christians, most of those that are killed in the Southeast, including the late husband of our demise icon, Dora Akunyili, the way the man was shot dead and everything, will you come and ascribe that to religion? I'm talking about what IPOP is doing. You see brothers killing brothers. Okay, so they sit at home that is going on Mondays in the Southeast that has almost crippled the economy of the Southeast. Is it targeted at Christians or Muslims? So Nigeria has complex security situations, and we should actually go out there and educate people so that they will know what to do. But when they just come out with a one-sided motion, it means they have a target, and that target is to strangulate the economy of Nigeria. That's my personal opinion. So it's left to us as a parliament to take proactive actions and be strategic in our response. If we stay here to give figures and instances where Muslims were killed or where Christians were killed, then we are not helping the situation. Ours should be, what do we do to ensure what Senator Jimoh Ibrahim said, counter terrorism? How do we respond to the guerrilla tactics of the terrorists, whether internal or external aggressors?
Abuja may seek to send a delegation to Washington or engage the U.S. Congress directly to explain ongoing reforms and security challenges. Nigeria can still avert a diplomatic confrontation and restore confidence by taking clear, verifiable steps. First, there is a need for credible investigation into all major incidents involving religiously motivated violence. Publishing official reports, prosecuting offenders, and compensating victims would demonstrate seriousness. Currently, a Christian from the south, agitating for self-determination of his Christian-dominated southeast Nigeria, is one of few standing trial in Nigeria for terrorism. Nnamdi Kanu. The government may want to consider resolving his matter politically to foster national healing and prove that law and institutions of state are fair to all. Second, constitutional reform may be required to clarify the secularity of Nigeria, and religious laws may apply in some jurisdictions, the limits of its power. This includes ensuring that Sharia courts operate strictly within civil law boundaries and that blasphemy cases are handled through regular judicial processes, not mob action. Third, peace building should become a national priority now. Government agencies, civil society, and religious leaders must strengthen local mechanisms for early warning and conflict prevention. Finally, Nigeria's foreign policy team should engage the United States directly through the State Department and the U.S. Congress to clarify facts and share progress updates. Nigeria has an avalanche of heavy global Christian figures that can assist make its case. Silence, especially from the highest levels of government, could be interpreted as indifference. After all, even if the tone of the statements from Trump and his team merely suggests that Washington's patience with Nigeria's security lapses is wearing thin, the risk is less about U.S. boots on the ground, but more about reputational damage and international isolation.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses.
Please, allow us to rest. I've been speaking since in the morning, and I have a lot to say again. Come and see how this man's head was butchered at the point of death. I could have rushed to this village to perform burial, but I was in Ruku, I was in Hurum, where those women were butchered on the ground. Come and see. Mutilated body. Did by Fulani terrorists. There are good Fulani. They don't love this crisis. There are good Muslims. They are bleeding because of this crisis. They don't want it, and I know. But the terrorists in Islam are busy becoming a tools in the hands of politicians. Now the service chief have been removed. Christopher Musa was removed because you know Christopher Musa has dealt with the insurgents more than Burutai. Burutai was pretending. Burutai was busy killing Nigerian Christian soldiers, handing them to the terrorists to kill them. We have mass death of Christians that are Nigerian armies, Air Force, that have been killed by insurgents. It was planned by Islamic officers. We know. Now Christopher is gone because you were chanting you don't want Christopher so that he will not touch the insurgents that were brought from different countries. Now you have succeeded. Christopher has been removed. We will see how Muslims will be killing Muslims in the north. Not Christian. We will never kill you. We will never cause problem for you. We will continue to love you. We will continue to like you. When I reached the hospital, I didn't spare anybody. The money that I have, I gave it to all, including the Fulani Women that are in the hospital, I supported them because of Jesus.
There's a lot of distortion going on. People claiming that there is no genocide of Christians in the nation. Information with facts can never be thwarted. You see people buried in hundreds and you say there is no genocide. What a wicked set of people. Agreed, there are people killed in other places for other reasons, but this one is very clear. And gradually it's eating down to the south, southwest, southeast, and many so-called leaders for their personal interests are claiming it's not true. Selling out their faith if they have it at all. Jesus said, when I come, will I find the faith? And we are standing here to say to Jesus, the faith will keep standing.
And that's the breaking news from Joliba Life CCDJ iRadian 8.59 and TV. You can click to rewatch this content or visit our video news page for more. Thanks for your attention.